Welcome to Gideon's Promise, the podcast with Jonathan Rapping. In the landmark 1963 decision Gideon v. Wainwright, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled every person accused of a crime in America must be provided a lawyer, regardless of their ability to pay. This podcast is about the people that uphold that promise, public defenders. These dedicated lawyers give voice to 80% of the people thrown into the system, and yet in the national discussion regarding justice reform, public defenders are largely overlooked. This show centers public defenders in that conversation. We will explore the critical role public defenders play in addressing a wide range of issues facing marginalized communities with subject matter experts, key opinion leaders, and people impacted by the American criminal legal system. Listen as a community of advocates discuss their work to strengthen public defenders and transform public defense. All right, everyone, I am so excited to be here today. Today is a really special day. It may be one of the biggest days of Gideon's Promise, the podcast. And normally, true form and fashion, I usually do all the intros of our special guests. But today, I'm going to turn that honor over to you, Rap, because today's guest, you have a significant relationship with today's guest. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rap, and let you do the introduction.
All right. I appreciate that. This is a special day. We've got with us Octavius Clarke, who I am looking forward to the world who don't know Octavius, getting them to know him through this podcast. But I've known Octavius for nearly 20 years. And in fact, he's someone who had a huge impact on me when I was just a brand new public defender. He was one of my earliest clients. And we've just recently reconnected. So this is exciting for me, Octavius. But before I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, I just want to note that during the month of April, we celebrate World Health Day. And with that in mind, we really wanted to focus on talking to someone who has been impacted by the system and get a sense of how the system impacts incarcerated people, their families, the lawyers and defense teams that serve them. And really during this past year, when we've been dealing with a pandemic, it's obviously the challenges have been heightened. And I know you think a lot about that. But Octavius, man, it is so good to have you here.
Yes, I'm grateful to be here. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here, I believe that it's just a great opportunity, to be able to get this out.
Let me ask this. Let me start by asking you, Octavius. I mean, I literally haven't seen you in almost 20 years. And earlier this year, you reached out after being back home, and I was glad to connect with you. And I really didn't want to talk to you too much before today because I wanted sort of that moment to be captured. I wonder if you can maybe share with us what's life been like for you since you've come home. You're doing incredibly successful, but I'd love for people to hear a little bit about it.
Oh, yes. The day I actually reached out to you, I actually was sitting in my mom's house and she was talking about you. And, that's why I reached out to you. I said, I wonder how you doing, because, you was always one of my favorite people when I was younger. I actually tried to get you to take over the case, but you was just assisting Miss Epion at the time. Because if you don't remember, it was you that actually pushed for the Youth Act for me. Since I've been home, it's been great, and it's been a struggle, because when I first came home into a man's situation with still having a child mentality, but I was educated. I had educated myself while I was in. So I was growing educational wise, but far as the things that took place to survive in society, I had no knowledge of because life was different when I came home. I went in as a 16-year-old child, no knowledge of prison, no knowledge of the adult system. So it was scary when I first, stepped foot into that institution, and right before, I think even after I got sentenced or before I got sentenced, I got stabbed in the neck when I was on a juvenile block. So that's how I still have this mark that's on my neck. So I was already, in a down spiral from the incident that took place, So as I went through that situation of, the stress, the lack of family and support being around, just having to do everything on my own, I kind of woke up and, never realized that the Lord was looking out for the whole time. Because, after the stabbing and after I got sentenced, everything else started to, seem to fall apart, but I was still, have no association with society other than the people that was incarcerated. So I learned that the loving, funny person I couldn't be that person no more if I wanted to survive to make it home. So at the same time, prison to snatch your spirit away from you and turn you into a monster that you never thought you can be, but you have to be that way to survive. So when I was able to come home, I came home in a man's situation, because I say that because I came home to a beautiful woman who had wanted the same thing out of life that I wanted, to build generational wealth, to try to break the generational curse in our family, just so things of that nature that I didn't get an opportunity to experience growing up, because, now that I know now that I'm more mature, that my mom and dad just wasn't equipped with the information and knowledge to raise a child the right way. And we don't understand that until we have our own kids. But I came home to a woman who was just recently in a bad relationship and was just recently divorced with someone who's older. So now I'm a father to a 6-year-old child. I never ever got a chance to be an adult to myself yet, So it was different. Then we got married because she had got a baby. So, but the great thing about it is that I was able to come home to a job. So I think that was the key thing, and always wanting it.
I would like you to spend some time talking about sort of what you recall about the attorney-client relationship that we had. What was it that you felt made that an important relationship? I mean, your case didn't turn out the way we wanted. I remember we were desperately fighting for you to be sent home on a youth act and not do any prison time. And I remember the day the judge gave you a sentence of 7 years to life, and how heartbroken I was, not knowing if you would ever get out again, because there was so much discretion on the part of the parole board. But even though things didn't go that way, I know we had a really great relationship, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your reflections of going through that experience as a 16-year-old.
I thought as far as our relationship was great, because at the end of the day, I know it was no way I was getting out of that situation. And all I was in search for at that age was for someone to be around me that cared, that was it. I already knew the situation. I knew the circumstances. I knew I was coming to take a plea or whatever. I knew there was no way out of it. I was going to do some time, and I wasn't trying to get away from my responsibility. I just wanted to be at the time, had people around me that cared, and people around me to go through this with me, because I was a kid. I never experienced nothing like this,
How old were you, Octavius, when that sentencing day happened?
I was 17 then. I was 16 when I was incarcerated. I actually was turning 16 that month. It actually happened 2 weeks later, because when the incident happened, me and my 3 best friends, all our birthdays in January, and we'd be sitting after school trying to debate what we was going to do for our birthday when the incident happened.
Mm-hmm. And
I was going to say, Octavius, I'll never forget, I got a call from your mother. I must have gotten the message around 5 o'clock in the morning, because I'm an early riser, telling me that you had been arrested, because you had been my client in a previous juvenile case.
Yes.
And I remember getting that call, and as I learned about the case, and I just want to share with the audience a little bit about what happened. You, I think, like so many young men in Washington, D.C. at that time, got a gun because it was a dangerous neighborhood and you had been robbed before.
Yes.
And as the gun was slipping out of your pocket, you went to grab it and it went off. It never got out of your pocket. The bullet went through your jacket and struck a young woman who you were very close with, and she died. And I remember as a juvenile, the prosecutor had a choice to make. That was clearly a manslaughter. It was not an intentional killing. And to charge you with manslaughter would have left you in juvenile court.
Yeah.
And in order to get you into adult court, the prosecutor charged you with murder, which basically completely changed the trajectory of your life. I wonder at that moment, like, did you appreciate at 16 what power the prosecutor had over your life?
I mean, that's when at that moment, that's when I realized that, power was involved when you're dealing with the system. That's when I went in. I started watching a lot of different documentaries and videos just on the injustice of Black people, and not only just Black people, just in Hispanic people too, because it just saddens me that you knew this was a mistake. You knew it was 1,000 people out there. I understand someone's life was taken, and we have to honor that and respect that. But at the same time, you gave me no wait. I'm gonna say, when you sentenced me, you left it out there for them to keep me as long as you wanted them to keep me. And I actually, when I came home, filed a motion to try to have that right arm taken off, so it won't be so deadly, and I can go further and try to get it, be expunged from it. But they denied me, saying the sentence was right. It wasn't, no unjust sentence. It was nothing wrong with the sentence. But it's just nothing I could do at the time. I just feel like, my mom wanted to put up her house. I'm like, for what? For a lawyer, when I'm going to take a plea that, there's no sense for me to do that just for me to get out on a bond when they're going to arrest me again, So it was just a whole lot of more emotions and disappointment than anything,
So, and speaking about disappointment, when you were incarcerated, you spent, if I'm not mistaken, over a decade in prison. And you met a lot of people who had many different stories. You mentioned earlier about, rap, we call them rap. So now that rap, really seemed to care about you, care about your case, care about your family. The fact that your mom talked about him upon your release is, he has this thing with moms. They love him, right?
And I love them.
but just the representation you received, being Rap's client, and then the stories you probably heard while incarcerated. How did the men you served time with feel about their public defenders, their public interest lawyers? Did you hear anything about how they felt about their representation? Was it the same the way you felt about yours, even though your outcome wasn't what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys that's incarcerated that don't have paid lawyers, they feel like they prepare themselves to do time. Let me put it that way, because they feel that they linked into already with the judges, the justice systems, the officers, they word against theirs. You see how many innocent men's coming home now, or so many men whose sentence was harsh that didn't even cause for that nature of the crime, So it's a lot of them feel like once they have a court-appointed lawyer, they come into jail, Some of them have good things to say, oh, he really fought for me, he tried, but his hands was tied, And that's understandable, because we know they only have so much rope that they can do, because at the end of the day, I believe it's just about money. From what I've seen from me going through the system and getting, shipped around, it seemed like every 3 years to different institutions, and the amount of money they was paying me in Unicor that was a slave for those 8 hours, it was just crazy, So I just look at the whole judiciary system as a big money getter.
And so, Octavius, we're finally talking about criminal justice reform. I mean, it's the first time in my adult life that we've really been acknowledging that what we are doing to people and to young people like you, is inhumane. And I'd love to talk to you about your thoughts about how important you think it is that we make sure everyone has a lawyer who has the heart set to fight for them, who cares about them, who has the resources to actually give them the kind of representation that we would want for our loved ones. As we're talking about all these different reforms, where do you rank making sure everyone has the kind of lawyer we would want for our own children?
Oh, I ranked that 10 times 100. It's important to have good representation. You feel like someone is fighting for you, you don't lose hope. You don't lose your spirit in the midst of going through trials and going through hearing people who tarnish your name in the media and stuff like that, because that play a big part. When I first stepped in, I had grown men telling me they're gonna kill me. I killed that girl, doing all this. So imagine a 16-year-old child who never been through this is going into a adult facility. What do we expect? Only thing now is to figure out how I'm gonna protect myself, And that's how some of us get caught up and can't come home.
And I have to say, Octavius, I remember those news stories and how frustrating it was, because we saw the forensic evidence. We actually knew for a fact that gun was still in your pocket when it went off. And I remember those stories and how troubling they were to me as your lawyer. I can't even begin to imagine how you, your mother, and your loved ones must have felt.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that you talked about, Octavius, and I didn't even think about it, is that, so I don't know if you know my story. My dad was, I'm a child of a formerly incarcerated person. My dad spent 10 years in Attica and then 5 more years in another institution in upstate New York. And as family members, we know you, right? We know our loved ones, right? And you, like your parents knew, the good 16-year-old, 17-year-old were, and what they were seeing, how you were portrayed is very different. I didn't even think about like external factors and how critical they are, how they almost influence what happens in court to the people who are actually being charged. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because we often forget, when we're talking about cases and we're talking about things, we forget about the people who are the other people, the family members who love the person who's being accused, right? And we do focus on the victim, and I think it is important, but also there's another story. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, because two of my best friends got kicked out of school after that, because her brother was always wanted to fight them. But me and him was close. We was like best friends too. So I understood his anger.
I also, Octavius, I have to say, I remember and was really moved by how moved you were by what happened to this young woman. I mean, I know that she meant a lot to you. And I remember you went on a letter writing campaign, quite frankly, against my advice. You were writing people saying, I'm so sorry. I really didn't want any of this to happen. I really wish there was some way I could trade my life for hers. This wasn't intended. I mean, I remember knowing the pain you were going through, man. And I'm just so sorry. I'm reminded of it as we talk now.
But her mom, actually, the reason why I made parole the second time. Adilla mom.
Really?
Yeah, the first time I went out for parole after 7 years, they denied me, said I needed some sort of education. And I had my GED, but they said I need some sort of college education. And Adilla mom had wrote a letter denying me to come home the first time. And she said she feel like she knew it was an accident that I didn't mean to hurt her daughter, but she feel like 7 years wasn't enough. So after 9 years, I went up again for parole because, I didn't get any trouble. So my points were so low that they wanted to send me to a low institution, but because of the nature of my charge, they had to keep me at a max. So they was like, you either stay here and go in the hole, or no, you either stay here and we keep you as a low custody and you stay on the compound. But if you want to go to a lower custody, we have to keep you in the hole. So I still chose to stay on the compound, and they kept my points a little higher. But the second time I went up, she wrote a letter and saying, God had healed her. She understand that I never meant to do it and all that. And it actually helped me because she was the only one who wrote the second time.
How did that make you feel?
It gave me a sense of relief, I feel like a burden was lifted off me that I was weighing in the whole 10 years I was in prison, so.
I think forgiveness is a strong emotion and a strong thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch a little bit and talk, because you've been released not too long ago. All this stuff that's going on with this pandemic, I cannot believe it's been over a year now where the world, the nation has been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's really has hit hard in the jails and prisons in this country. And the health and safety of incarcerated people has been forgotten. And what I've seen in the country really is a movement of public defenders out there advocating for the release of people. What were the conditions like where you were?
Back in 98, it wasn't as bad as it is now. The DC jail has got worse since I've been back over there to revisit, but it's horrible over there. You talked about the health condition. My brother-in-law is right now sitting over there waiting trial. He's been over there almost 2 years, haven't seen a judge yet, which is sad, And on top of that, this first co-opponent lawyer, never seen him. So now he have another one, but the health condition is just horrible there. He ended up catching corona while he was there too. But they ain't do nothing but lock them down in the hole, which makes things worse because you locking somebody down in a little cell that's sick. So it's good that y'all fighting for better health and get these people home. That'd be great. If people could even go to trial from home because of the condition, it'd be great.
Wow. Are you in touch still, Octavius, with some of the people you knew from the inside?
Yes, a lot of them is actually coming home. They've been in, 20 something years. Most of them been in 20 something years. So I'm in contact with a lot of them. But at this moment where I'm heading in my life, the ones that's got their head right, I try to deal with, but the ones that's not on the right path, I try not to be a part of, because I don't want them influencing me and messing up with my wife and I are building right now. So the ones that's headed in the right direction, I keep in contact with.
So let me ask you this, because you went through this experience and clearly kept your head on straight. I mean, you are, it's really impressive to me what your outlook is and what you're doing. And that couldn't be easy. And I just wonder if for the people listening who really don't have any sense of what day-to-day life inside of a prison is like, could you share that with us a little bit? I mean, just give people a sense of just how remarkable it is that anybody comes out of that and is able to succeed in life.
And basically from sun up to sundown, you know, prison to me is just a big old WrestleMania arena, you know, with people who tempers that's ready to explode at any minute because they mad that they might not never go home. They going through trial and, you know, they getting blackballed, or they just feel like they have nothing left to live for. So now, you know, I'm just speaking on my life. I had to learn fast because I wasn't the biggest person when I went in. I was a skinny kid, you know, so I had to use my brain when I was in there. So for me, after I got stabbed, I know they close the doors at a certain time at night, mostly around 10 o'clock at night. And they open them at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I made sure I went in there, maybe read for a couple of hours, then go to sleep so I could be enough rest to get up before the doors pop. Because you have correctional officers who will open the door for people, you know, and you know how that go, you know. But for me, I wisened up. I got out my cell and I set out on a tier for hours out of the day, every day, and just examine my unit, examine the people that moved around there. That way I won't be in their way. I can move around everybody in there. That way I could be a ghost to people that's in those units. So if I'm staying out of people's way and I'm moving accordingly to their schedule and not my schedule, then I had nothing to worry about, you know. So it was tough for me. It was scary when I first went down low. And I think that was the most scariest part when I was 17, because, you know, I wasn't supposed to go down to an adult institution until I was 18. So they sent me down there at 17, you know, because they was trying to make space and I was already sentenced. So when I went down low, and it's literally just like the movies, when you step in behind the wall, because they sent me behind the wall because of the nature of my charge. So this is the cell. This is actually the tier. So people can reach out and grab you. So and when you come in there, most of the time they doing the transfers at night. So you come in because you didn't went on the road, got to go through R&D and everything. So by the time you get into your cell, it may be 11 to everybody locked down. So you just hear people screaming, "Oh, we got new meat. That's my boy." That's, you know, you just hear all this stuff. So it could be scary for a young man that was, you know, like myself, that's going in and never experienced this. But through the grace of God, you know, my cousin, the father of a child, was there. He'd been there for years, and he kind of had some pull there. So immediately I was taken under his wing, and then a lot of people that I grew up with in my neighborhood that was older than me was there. So I didn't have to worry about anything once I left the jail and went over down Lawton. So because we all transferred throughout the feds with each other, you know, so I was always around somebody till I got old enough to really handle myself.
And when you talk about Lawton, just so our listeners know who are not from the DC, Maryland, Virginia, you know, Lawton was a correctional facility in Virginia. It was one of the worst facilities in the country. And so, you know, when you talk about Lawton, and I use that as an example in a presentation about a kid that I used to be a teacher, a kid that I taught, who, when he was 6, I taught first grade, and they used to call him in the neighborhood Little Lawton. They had already given him that narrative, and he was just a kid. And so just describing how it was, and you going in, and that luckily you had some allies then to protect you, because it was a harsh institution, especially for a young man to be thrown into.
Yes.
So what, you know, there are people, you started off when we talked about, you're glad we're doing this because it's important that we hear from people who actually impacted the system, people who are actually inside, formerly incarcerated people. You can't have justice reform without hearing the stories from the people most impacted. What message would you have for people who are currently running the criminal justice system? What would you say to them, the people who have the power right now?
That it started with them, you know. Y'all have the power to change the laws, but until the racism and the hatred stop, there's no way that these laws is going to be passed to benefit minorities. It's impossible unless it starts from within. And and from me watching all these documentaries, these true movies that's based on a true story that's dealing with the government and far as with prison, far as the money they making off these kids, being incarcerated. Even with the show that I'm watching, Queen Sugar, I'm pretty sure, Queen of the South in New Orleans, they doing the same thing similar as far as with this. Not doing the same thing, but show how these people are taking money. They paying people maybe $5,000, but they making $60,000 a year off these inmates. Why would they stop that if they building generational wealth for themselves and their family? So once you start talking money, everything else is all out the window when you're talking about power and money. But it's only way is it changes if it changed from within, far as the way they look at people, period. I'm not just talking about Black, Mex, I'm just talking about people, period. If everything is based on love, or people, same way like in Philippians where they talk about, finally, brothers, whatever is true, what it say, whatever is true, just whatever is pure, whatever is loving, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's any, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. If we live life based on love and based on looking out for one another, then it won't be too many hatred. So much hatred in the world. You're gonna have those rebellious people, but those people will fall to the wayside, But
how are you not bitter?
Oh, I was, trust me.
You were.
I say this is a good thing because people don't have a chance to vent when they come home. People expect that people are adults, that they should just be fine when they come home, not knowing. It's like the military. People need to be rebriefed. People need to be, debriefed. People need to be going through therapy. It wasn't until I went to therapy till I realized, and the Lord showed me that, okay, these things are keep happening. You have to, the problem with, I say people change their mindset, but they don't have a renewed mindset. That's the difference. I changed my mindset when I was in there, when I realized, okay, my friend's not there for me. I'm not getting no letters. I don't want to live my life like this. My sisters and brother, I'm not hearing from them. I'm missing out on all this on the world. That's the change mindset that I want to do different. I don't want to hang with these people. But if I come home and do nothing with that knowledge, then I don't have that renewed mind, And that's the problem with a lot of my friends. And now I'm looking at it as the outcast, because the Lord renewed my mind. I'm still going through stuff. We human. We're going to have our mistakes. But at the same time, if I went through it and I'm learning, and I'm trying to teach you, why wouldn't you grab onto it,
Octavius, you talked about coming home and going to therapy and how that helped you. And again, because this is, we're celebrating World Health Day. Health isn't just physical health, it's mental health. And there are a lot of people who feel like therapy is for other people. They don't feel comfortable going to therapy. How did that happen for you? Is that something you were set on doing when you came out? Did you have mentors or somebody who suggested you try it? How did that happen? And how helpful has that been?
The prayer. I just got to praying. I just got tired of letting my wife and kids down, So I stopped looking at blaming people, and I reflect on my own self, like, asking Lord, what do I have to change to get better? What am I doing wrong? Instead of reflecting my pain and anger on other people and taking out them, I tried to better myself. And once I've realized I needed help to talk to somebody other than my wife or somebody that's close to me, I needed somebody's opinion that don't know me, for they can get out of me what I needed. And everything that I went to get from that therapist in that short period of time, it helped me reflect on what I need to do with my life.
So then tell us about your wife and your family. Until Illy and I get a chance to come to DC and sit down with you all live, let us know a little bit about them. What are their names? What are they? Tell us about them.
Yeah, my wife's name is Laurel. My oldest daughter is Miriam. She's 19. My son, he's 12, and my youngest is 6. She's a girl. She's 6. But they great people. They great human beings. Like I said, you obviously know you got a strong Black woman beside you. I took her through a lot, gave her a lot of headaches, but she's still here. Without her, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. She's a very smart young woman. She's running her own business right now. It's real. It's a blessing.
So what are you doing now? Like, you're doing well. What are you doing?
I'm actually right now working at DC Water and the sewer and wastewater, and helping my wife when I can with the business. So right now we trying to get into everything because, like I said, my wife and I, we just trying to break the narrative, man. We grow up in the system, with the system and homes and merges and stuff like this, just constantly continue to repeat itself. And I'm just trying to the things that I didn't get, I'm trying to give to my family and to whoever was willing to listen. You know, my father wasn't there. My mom always worked. So she'd get up at 4:00 in the morning. She gone at 5:00 in the morning. She ain't getting home until when the government was really giving out overtime, she wasn't getting home until around 8:00 at night. So I basically was raising myself, you know, once my sisters got old enough to go out on your own. But you just need that support system, you know, without that education and support system, it's impossible for us to make it anywhere.
That's so true. That's so true. We talk with a lot of people who come home, and the reason they have been successful, been able to do, whether they take on the criminal justice reform space or they're mentoring young men or women, they always say that support group coming out, the family, the friends. One woman said, she had a judge kept saying, "Why do you keep coming into court?" And she said, "If somebody could just give me a job,
yeah,
I won't be here." Right. And he was like, "That's it." And that was it. It changed her entire life. That was Marilyn Wynn, who's a huge reformer here in Atlanta. But I'm just so happy. Like, Rap was so excited when you reached out to him. And
he don't even seem like he aged.
Oh, I've got a filter on this screen. Hides the gray. Hey, you don't look like you aged. Hey,
I just dyed my beard though. I agree.
So I do have a question for you about this, man. So you've been through a lot, and you've got wisdom, and you have wisdom. And I wonder, like, for young men now who are trying to navigate this world, maybe who feel hopeless, maybe they're doing time, whatever challenges they're going through, what do you say to them? What advice do you have for them to sort of keep them positive?
I guess just stand in prayer, whatever you believe in. Just stay in prayer, stay to yourself, be focused, and understand that it's hard in there. So when you come home, what do you want out of life? Do you want to repeat the same lifestyle, or do you want to make a difference? Do you want to clean your name up? It's going to be based on the individual. You got to have discipline, and we all went through something in life. We kind of can't let our past hinder us, because the society is already going to do that for us, so we can't put the burdens on ourselves any longer. We just got to come out and do what we got to do and take the hits when they come, because they wanted to keep me on parole. I'm supposed to have been on for life,
Oh my, wait,
yeah.
Let's explain that to our listeners before we have to. You were released, you did your time, you were on parole, and they were trying to keep you on parole for life. What can you explain to people that don't understand the system, what that would mean for you if that happened?
Yes, my sentence was 7 years to life. So by me coming home after 10 years, any little thing that I do, or any wrongdoing, or any encounter with law enforcement, I could be sent back to prison for the rest of my life. They didn't even have to give me parole, but because they go off this number, but y'all, you know how they go off of it, and they had no choice but to
essentially a grid. It's a grid.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, I realized, DC was swamped, with cases, parole officers not caring, things of that nature. You do the wrong thing, they sending you back. I didn't want that for me, because I already know, I wasn't right mentally yet, but I had a great foundation with my wife, so I didn't want to mess it up. So I asked to be transferred to Maryland. So when I got transferred to Maryland, I was doing so good. My parole officer was like, I never seen nothing like this. You came home working the first day, your wife and I, you bought a house, y'all didn't, you got a great job, y'all, So after 5 years, I went up for, asked to be early terminated, So they granted me a hearing. So when the parole commission come down, they couldn't find nothing, no reason not to take me off. It was just one incident that I got pulled over for a speeding ticket. And this is the time I didn't know I had supposed to let my parole officer know that I got pulled over for a speeding ticket. So she wasn't caring, but the lady was like, I can keep you on for this. You're supposed to report any encounter with law enforcement. So she sat there for a second, but she's like, I'm not going to hold you up. Everybody talk highly about you, your parole officer, your spiritual father, your wife, your people at your job. So I'm not going to do that. So they took me off, So that's why a lot of people I know that come home from DC, if they have family members in Maryland, I suggest them to transfer their parole over to Maryland.
So a simple speeding ticket, if you were still on parole, could have landed you back in prison. That's amazing.
Wow.
That's
Especially
amazing.
how crowded it was. No telling how many years it was going to take for me to see the parole board again.
So Octavius, I can't let you go without asking you about your mom. How was your mother doing? She was just such a force. I mean, I just remember her commitment and dedication to you during that hardship was remarkable. And I feel like she and I really bonded during that time, and I miss her. So I want to hear a little bit about her.
Oh yeah, she's doing great. She's 71. She's retired. She's been retired, I believe, maybe 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, or more. It could be more. But she's doing home, just enjoying her, rest of the years on this earth, because she's having a lot of pain in her legs. So I'm hopefully my wife and I continue to build our wealth. I can get her on this one level house. She want to sell her house when she passed, but I'm trying to keep it in the family. She don't understand how important that is to have property and stuff. So, and that's what,
in the family, yes.
So, my wife and I, and my mom is doing good, but other than her legs and her ankles, that be bothering her, she's all right.
Please send her my love.
I definitely will. I tell her I'll talk to you.
Good.
Well, we hope that when this pandemic is over and we can travel, because we actually get an opportunity to be in DC a few times a year, either both of us or one of us usually rap. We would love to take you out to lunch, dinner, wherever, meet the family, hang out.
Matter of fact, we do a holiday party in DC annually.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm going to invite you the next time we can do it live. Hopefully it'll be December. If not this year, it'll be next year.
And anytime you're in the A,
Okay,
yeah. We were just up there not too long ago too. That's crazy. I didn't know y'all live up there. And we love to travel too. Like I said, if y'all want us to fly, we sure will fly.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We love to travel. We done been a lot of places,
Well, I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna say this in true former fashion. This is Ilham Askia.
And this is Jonathan Rapping.
Wrapping it up.
Hey, Il, before we hit that outro, why don't you tell people how to order a copy of the book in your radio voice?
In my radio voice?
Yeah, in your radio voice.
Okay. Get your copy of Gideon's Promise, a public defender movement to transform criminal justice at Amazon, IndieBound, Beacon Press, or wherever books are sold. Pre-order today, and a portion of proceeds will help us support public defenders.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Thank you for listening to Gideon's Promise, the podcast, with Jonathan Rapping. For more information on the topics covered and featured guests, please visit our website at gideonspromise.org. And finally, please subscribe, share, and let us know what you think.